And when it comes to using functions in Excel, there are a number of tools that will help you troubleshoot problems. Now, sometimes Excel might spot a problem for you immediately and put, in this case here, a little green triangle in the top left. We know a little red triangle top right means a comment, but one in the top left means Excel thinks there's an issue with this. When you click in, you get the little information pop out, and it comes up with what it thinks the problem is, invalid name error. And we can control what Excel is looking for. If you go to File and Options, and then on the Formulas tab, you'll see there's a section here, Enable Background Error Checking. Now this tick is on by default, which means Excel will keep its eye open for potential errors. If it finds errors, it will indicate them with a green indicator. You can choose any colour you like. Perhaps you don't like green, perhaps you'd like your own colour. I might go for quite like purple. Let's have dark purple. Now the things that it will be checking for are in this list here, and you can turn some things on and off. Cells containing formulas that result in an error. So hash value, divo, they'll get a little indicator. Inconsistent calculated column formula in tables. Display error indicators enable error correction for cells that contain formulas or values inconsistent with the column formula for tables. So if you're using formulas in a table and they're not correct, you'll get this same little indicator. Cells containing years represented as 2 digits. Numbers formatted as text or preceded by an apostrophe. Formulas inconsistent with other formulas in the region. That's quite useful when you're copying formulas and you create a formula in one column, you create a formula in the next column, and it doesn't select the same relative range. That will get highlighted in Excel. Formulas which omit cells in a region. Unlocked cells containing formulas will get highlighted. Now this one isn't automatically ticked, but you can turn it on. Formulas referring to empty cells. Well, that's quite common in a spreadsheet, so you wouldn't want little indicators popping up all the time if a cell's empty. And data entered in a table is invalid. So you can turn on or off any of these background error checking options, or you can totally disable background error checking altogether, in which case you'll never get those little indicators and you'll have to manually run the error check. If you need to manually run the error check, that's done from the Formula ribbon, and error checking has a little drop down. One needs to trace an error on a cell that has an error, or error checking will check the whole document. So we click error checking here, it finds this cell here and says there's an error, invalid name error. Well, it's already found that with its background checking, that's why it's put the little indicators there, which you'll notice are now purple, not green. So the default is green, so if you're on your own machine or someone else's and you get green, you know it's a problem. If you happen to be sat down at mine, you'll suddenly get purple and you'll know it's a problem. So what can we do about that? How do we find out what the problem is? Well, if it's automatically checked it, you'll get a little pop out. And you can choose help on this error, show calculation steps, ignore the error, which sometimes you want to do, edit the error or error checking options. Now the error checking options will just take me where we've been in the Excel options. Let's run through the calculation steps, see if that will help. VLOOKUP BRE, because that's what it's finding, which is this value here, evaluated. DY, so evaluate. And that's where the problem is, it can't find dy. That's why I'm getting a hash name. dy is a named range. The named range does not actually exist. If I create it, which I can with this little table here, dy, return, back to employees, all the little errors have disappeared, hash names disappeared, and my function returns Wednesday. Now, if you ever need to evaluate a formula that hasn't got an error, so if you want to run through the steps of a formula, we can do that too from the Formulas ribbon, Evaluate Formula, and this has a step-by-step process through your formula. So the first thing is VLOOKUP weekday N2, evaluate. It says N2 is 24321. So August the 2nd, 1966 is day 24321. Evaluate the next step, which is the weekday function, returns a 3. So the 8th of August was day 3 of a week. Evaluate the dy, converts the dy into the range, so you can see that summary and those cells. Evaluate, and we get Wednesday. And you can restart and go through the whole process again, or you can close. So that's quite a useful option, evaluate the formula. You can do that on any formula that you have in existence. This one here, for example, evaluate formula, count if table employees QQ, so that's the whole column Q, E3, evaluate changes the E3 into MAR, evaluate, then says it's 43 MAR employees. So that's a great little option there, evaluate formula. Error checking is on automatically, or you can run it at any stage. It says the error check is complete because we've already run it. And you've even got an option to trace an error. So if a particular cell had an error, you could then trace that error to find out where it's come from. And the other little tool that's quite useful for troubleshooting is a watch window. This allows you to put a watch on individual cell or cells. So if I click, it opens, and I can see I already have a watch, so let's delete that watch. To add a watch, I simply click Add Watch, pick on the cell or cells I want to watch, add, and that gets added in. Perhaps I want to watch these as well, so add those three, add, and you can see they get added in as separate items so that each cell's value can be seen. Now this watch window can remain open while we go to another sheet. Now this will allow me to see if anything I do here has any effect in the next sheet. So for example, if I were to change this person's salary, notice salary is there 2.132258. If I change this salary dramatically down to 10,000, then return, that has an immediate effect on the salary total. Now, without the watch window, there's no way I can watch what I'm doing here will change a value on another sheet. So I keep the watch window open while I'm in this sheet, and I can see an immediate change. If I were to change some of these marital status, let's have a few more married people. You can see that as soon as I've entered the MAR, it changes the MAR total upwards and reduces, in this case, the SIN value downwards. And if I were to do a lot in one go, let's make a lot of divorced all the way up there. That makes a major change on these numbers here. So that's the watch window. You open the watch window, you then click Add Watch to pick the cell or cells you want to watch. And then you can leave this window open while you're in a different sheet and see what effect it's going to have, you changing a value in one sheet, on the values that you're watching in another. Excellent little tool, really. So there are a number of little tools here for helping you troubleshoot. The error checking option, the automatic error checking, which is on by default, so you would need to turn it off if you don't want it on by default. The evaluate formula for running steps through formulas, very useful for very long formulas, so you can see if there's an issue at any stage. And then the extremely useful watch window, allowing you to watch the values of cells and how they might be changed in one sheet while you're in another.